We'll give it a couple seconds to sync up. YouTube, appreciate you hanging out for a minute. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We really wanted to go with like a 60s Mad Men theme of like not knowing how to use technology. So I think that's perfectly on theme. As punishment, I'll throw my video into black and white. I don't deserve to be in color for the rest of this, but I'm going to give it a go. Thank you for hanging out with me. Just throw one in chat to appreciate Dale and Vero helping me figure this out and making sure that we got live. So really appreciate that. With that being said, welcome to, for the third time today, welcome to SDR Week. I'm your host, Colin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Dale Dupree, and we're talking about how you can stop your boring outreach. I'm really excited about this one. Dale is the founder, CEO of the Sales Rebellion, and he's going to be talking to us about how to use creativity and all those crazy things that, I mean, I love Dale. I think you're certifiably insane in the absolute best kind of way. I'm super pumped to have you like pull in deep from that midichlorian life chest of sales development knowledge you have. This is like having Yoda come on the show and be like, this is how you use the Force. So welcome to the show, Dale. I'm so pumped for you to teach us how to stop our boring outreach. So let's start. I know we're going to talk about some of your favorite creative approaches, and we've got some amazing examples. How do you think about just creativity? Like, where do you start? I mean, obviously it's Star Wars, but like after Star Wars, where next?
So I think it's important to, and hey, thanks again for having me on, Colin. I'm super excited to be here with everybody. Thanks for everybody that's streaming live as well too, hanging out with us, spending their time with us. Time is the most important thing that we can give to each other. So sincerely from the bottom of my heart, thank you. So creativity stems from a place that we have to call deep within ourselves. There are a lot of people out there that hear the word and they say, even out loud, they say, I'm not a creative person, right? I can't really do that because I'm not a creative person. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that. One of my first students, one of his biggest concerns was like, this all looks cool and awesome, these campaigns and all these things that you're teaching and that I'm about to start doing, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to do this. I've never done anything like it for 10, 20 plus years. I've been knocking on doors and dialing phones, and just going straight to the pitch, essentially. Hey, can I have 30 seconds to tell you why I called? And the very traditional concepts. But for me, that's an easy choice, right? It's an easy choice to sit back and say, should I call like this, like everybody else, and do it the way they tell me in this book that I can buy for $19.99, which is way too overpriced in the first place? Or should I try something that I know deep within my soul not only would speak to me, but would speak to an audience and be relevant and familiar in the moment, more so than anything else? The other side of it too, bro, is from a creative standpoint, sitting back and saying what we long for and what we latch to as humans in general is something that kind of disrupts or interrupts our typical and daily patterns. We kind of long for those things because it means that something new is happening, and new is always good until we get too stuck into a rhythm. And for salespeople, they're stuck in their rhythms. They get stuck in them for 20 plus years. And so let's go back to the same gentleman that I was coaching at the beginning of my career at the Sales Rebellion, who then went out and did 13 drops with something that we're going to talk about today. And he got 9 responses and appointments with those. And I'll never forget it because he called me that day and said, I've never done anything like this in my life. Usually if I make 20 calls, I get maybe 1 interaction. And it's like a 50-50 shot as to whether or not it's a yes or a no. And it's in those moments too that we ourselves tap into our own inner creativity, with the help of somebody else in some cases. And now for me, like my creativity comes from being a musician. I'm naturally creative just as a human. Like I was born with the gene, if you want to say it that way. But being a musician for so long, I was in a creative space all the time. I was constantly being challenged, challenging others. And I was always in a place in my head where like when you walk into a dark room where no one can see each other and the music's too loud, how do you create a fun environment here? An atmosphere that people will remember when they wake up the next morning. Something that people will long to come back to at the next time you show up in town as well too. So for me, it all starts from the human interaction between one to another, right? More so than how can I sell you my product? And if we go there, creativity is a lot easier to jump into in the first place.
I love that approach. I remember being an early in my sales career. And I think if I was, I would think about it differently now, obviously, but I think taking the leap to go outside of the normal is not an easy thing to do if you are if you're new in sales, whether you're a sales development rep, you're an account exec, you're in, whatever variety of sales role that you might be in. And so how did you, and like, I know the answer would be different now because you understand the benefits of, like, I know it's helpful to be creative. Where did that courage come from? Or how did you think about that first opportunity to do something different? Right? Because it takes guts. It takes, like, hey, I could potentially sacrifice this lead list to try something weird, and they may hate it and hate me, and then all the world is going to end, and then I'm going to get fired, and then I'm going to be homeless and living in a van down by the river.
Dude, and you're not far off, right? When we're young, especially, our brain goes to these places that it doesn't need to go in the first place. We typically, as humans in general, we exaggerate things. It's just kind of human nature to do that. And that's where creativity comes into play very well. Because if we exaggerate the interaction in the moment that we're having it and make it more fun and more creative and obnoxious, even, it's like you just said earlier, Colin, you said you were certifiably crazy in the best way. And I take that as the best compliment anybody could give me. By the way, you said midichlorians earlier. We got to discuss this and not discuss it, but let's just throw it out there for the audience. Like, there are Star Wars people that don't like midichlorians, right? So, like, we'll come back to that later. Okay. Please start talking about it in the chat, though. Yes for midichlorians or no? Are you a George Lucas, purist, or are you kind of like, why'd you do that, bro? But coming back to this identity again of saying how and why, right? At the same time too, because you want to know why, Colin? It's this simple. I sat in a bullpen at my dad's office. For those that don't know my story, I worked for my father full-time selling copiers for 4 years before his company was acquired. And I was thrown to the wolves. But when I was thrown to the wolves, I survived. Beyond survival, I thrived. I became the #1 rep at the organization, and eventually became the VP of sales. And the thought process behind, and it was all net new business. Everybody listening, net new business. I didn't thrive on an existing list. I didn't get put into this situation where I was like, oh, here's all this stuff. My dad lost $600,000 in revenue the year that he hired me. So we were living off gas station hot dogs, literally using gas cards, like credit cards, because we maxed everything else out. We had no money in the bank. So, nice. So no survival mindset here whatsoever in the midst of everything that you just heard, but to thrive. And so here's where I sat in a bullpen where most of the people were commission based. And at that point in time as well, too, I had a draw, and so did everybody else. Right. But prior to, like, nobody knew what a draw was or a salary, even for that matter, and as a sales rep. Right. So I came from this culture of saying you got to kill what you're going to eat yourself.
Wait. Your dad had you on a draw?
My dad had me on a draw, bro.
It was
paid me a salary.
It was his own company.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you for the
He wasn't a terrible person, everybody listening.
It's an old school way of thinking about it, right? Like, especially coming in the copier world, like, it wasn't uncommon to be 100% commission and to have to pay for your training materials and like this and this and that. It's not like you were going door to door selling knives for Cutco, but it's a step up. For those uninitiated, explain to the SDRs of the world what a draw is.
Oh man, it sucks going back this far, right?
I know,
but
I've been there.
It sucks.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, so you basically, everybody listening, imagine that every week you got paid $500, and imagine at the end of the month that you owed all that money back, basically, based on the quota you were supposed to hit and the money that the actual revenue that you brought in. And so imagine that the company would then come to you and go, hey, we'll keep paying your draw, but now you owe us $3,000. And so when you make a commission, it's coming out of there. And so essentially now you're already sitting in this place where like $500 is not a lot of money, period. And imagine after taxes what that looked like. And I think for me, when I started, I think it was $250 a week. Yeah. I want to say $250 or $275. So that, and again, this was 2007, so it was a little bit different, right? Now we have $15 minimum wage, or we do so soon, or Canada does. Somebody has it. So anyway, so the thought process again is, from a draw perspective is that you have to thrive. This is the only way to really enjoy what you do, because if you're surviving, you'll be unhappy. You'll fall to the temptations of what sales brings with it, the silent enemy as well of sales, which is depression, mental, losing your mental fortitude. There's lots of little pieces of that puzzle. So I remember sitting in that bullpen and thinking to myself, why are we calling 200 people a day to get hung up on? Why aren't we saying, here are 10 very qualified people that could possibly buy from us between now and when their equipment that we were selling is up, and going and securing relationships with them. And the thought process was, you can't go knock on that door, Colin, and say, hey guys, I brought you some cookies and I wanted to be friends, and then maybe one day sell you something. Like, that doesn't work, right? Period. Because A, that's self-serving, because you have no idea what boat they're in and whether or not they want a relationship with you in the first place. And B, it's this identity of an expectation, right? Salespeople have too many expectations day in and day out, too many assumptions as well too. And so I fought against those things. And I said, what if I gave people an experience that they deserved and that they longed for instead? And that's when I started to get creative and think, what's out there? Stu Heineck was one of the first people that I found. He became my silent mentor over the years, where
silent mentor means you stalked him, right?
Yes.
Aaron was my silent mentor in the early days too. So cool. I'm just like, I call it internet stalking. You call it silent mentor. Potato, patata. Yeah. Just clarifying.
Yeah. So, kind of the same thing. He was my silent, I stalked him mentor. Yes, there we go. I think that it works like that. And I learned things about, like, a guy sending $1,000 sword to another person with their name engraved on it and winning $100 million sale. And I thought, that works, but a lot of that stuff is also gimmicky. So in my mind, I started to deduce, what are the common assumptions that people have about sales, all salespeople, not just, oh, you're a copier salesman, or, oh, you sell white pages, or whatever was popular at that point in time, right? Not just this, put them in a box, but like, everybody feels equally distant to salespeople. And that's one of the things that I found very, very quickly in my career, was that everybody hates salespeople. And so it was easy for me to take the stereotypes, the things that were wrong, the interactions that happen, which again are very generic. And so they work from a scalability perspective. Mm-hmm. That, like, I can't just send everybody a sword or a shoe and say, now that I got a foot in the door, like, people are going to see the gimmick in that. And then the other side is like, how could I hyper personalize that and make it scalable? You can't. It's impossible. And so instead, the experience is hyper personalized, not necessarily the message. It doesn't say, speak to them in their alma mater and their 5-year-old son that plays t-ball that I stalked and found out the information about, to not beat around that word. But again, this idea of creating something very familiar, because that sparks a certain part of the brain that then turns it on and starts to tell a story. And then also the relevance to it as well. And with those two ingredients alone, curiosity kicks in. And now creativity and curiosity marry up so well, and buying decisions are created through curiosity and this identity of, what's going to happen to me, the give or take. Like, what happens if I say yes? What happens if I say no? And it's in those moments that we, again, psychologically, that we can connect with a human being naturally instead of manipulating. So creativity, bottom line, is the most basic way to really sell somebody something without making them feel like you're going through the motions or creating some kind of gimmick.
Love that. If we kind of fast forward from the good old days of being on a draw, which as you were talking about it, my gut was going there with you, because I lived on a draw for a while as well, and it was not fun. Throw a 3 in chat if you've ever been on a draw commission plan, and we'll sympathize with you. But I want to ask chat, we've had 2 very popular guests on the podcast, on streams, on our virtual conferences. One being Beck Holland, who's incredible. Another being Josh Braun, who is also incredible. Can I get a vote? Like, have you been to either 1 Beck Holland or 2 Josh Braun? Throw just some numbers in chat. If you haven't seen either of them, just throw a bunch of 9s, because apparently we're German today. Julia will love that joke. Because there's so much of, like, if I think back in the early days of sales development, when predictable revenue first came out, Aaron hinted at some templates, but he didn't actually put any templates in the book. But you could kind of guess what they were going to be or what they should be. And I think for the longest time, sorry to bother you. Could you point, are you the person responsible for, or could you point me in the direction of the person? Could you introduce me to the person responsible for X? Was one of the leading templates. And then it seems like the last couple of years, and so I think that was like the first era. Then the second era was like Sales Loft going, hey, no, this is wrong. You got to personalize everything. And so it went from that to introducing a a little bit of personalization in there. And then I think the next sort of iteration was this Beck Holland and Josh Brand. So can you talk a little bit about one, how maybe your take on the Braun Holland approach here, and then how to break out of it? Because if I look at my inbox and if I look at my LinkedIn, if everybody is using, like when Beck Holland first started writing this, it was incredible. And I think her approach and Josh's approach are still amazing. If everybody is copying or using these two general templates, it starts to become the norm, and there's a shelf life on that. And as sales development professionals, we're kind of doing this like tactic arbitrage where we're always trying to find what is going to be that next approach. And I'm not trying to imply that Josh Braun or Beck Holland are old or stale, or they haven't evolved. They've done some amazing, like highly influential presentations that I think people keep going back to and maybe haven't gone back and not kept themselves updated. And I think there's like a comfort in doing something that's familiar, something that's similar. And I think I've gotten in the habit of, in my sales career, of just sort of sticking with what works. And so talk to me about the Braun Holland approach, and then talk to me about why we need to think outside of that box.
So first off, I don't know Beck personally. Great lady, super influential, obviously, in the sales world. And what they have done that I think is super positive, they've got people away from the status quo of what it does look like to send an email and to communicate with somebody, and they're helping people to think bigger, even if it is, like you said, something. Listen, I have like 50 emails that are the literal Beck Holland playbook right now in my inbox, between my between my email inbox, my work and my personal, and I leave them, like that's like literally from yesterday and today. And I typically leave them, and I usually go back to them. And I respond to any sales email. Please, for the love of God, though, if you're listening to this, don't just send me one just to send me one. Like, send me one if you really want to hear feedback, or if you really think that I can buy something from you. But because I get tons of them, and it is my heart to serve. So I usually respond and say, here's a couple things I would do a little different, because at this point, it's not just that I see the script, that's happening here, that's very scalable and repeatable, but I see the genericness to it. And I think a lot of people see the genericness to it as well too, that you're going to get a buyer that's going to read it and go, wow, you really did your thing here and crushed it. Well, that's what people were doing with all the Grant Cardone stuff and the Jeb Blunt stuff. And they did the same thing in the beginning until they saw those people in action and were like, you learned it from these guys. We're basically giving you these playbooks to come in and get an appointment with me. So this isn't actually genuine in the first place. So we at the Rebellion, we teach the concept of a gem. Every rebel has one, a genuine, empathetic, and mindfulness mindset. And so the idea is that when we write something like an email, we want to take people through an experience. I think the best part about Josh Braun, he's a personal friend also, and shout out to Josh Braun if he's ever watching this at some point in his life. Probably not, he's too busy. But the first time I met him, I'll say that I had dinner with him and his wife. I teach my wife sales, right? It was so much fun. Him and Jenna and I were eating octopus and chilling and hanging out in South Florida. And what I realized and recognized is, like, what Josh teaches people, they take too literally. Like, what he's teaching people is like to check out of their status quo shell and do something that's a little bit different, and that, again, accommodates a buyer. But everybody uses it like a play. You got to stop using these things like a play. You got to start using them as a way to naturally progress a relationship with the people that you're trying to write to and to build something with. So I believe in storytelling. First and foremost, I've been doing it for a long time. And then I met Chris Watson, who's the master storyteller. If you're not connected with him on LinkedIn, definitely go find him. You can find him at the Sales Rebellion's web site, or just type his name in on LinkedIn. You'll find him. He's also the co-host of Selling Local podcast with me. And the guy tells a ridiculously good story. And I'll tell you this too, that when you have this identity of being able to connect with people through storytelling, what happens is that you slowly recognize that, like in the emails that we're talking about here, that they're relevant because they're hyper personalized to an extent, but they're not really creative is the problem. And they don't activate any of the nodes in your brain that creativity sparks in the first place. So curiosity doesn't necessarily play a role in those emails. Sometimes it does with the Braun templates because of the way that he influences people to be saying certain things. But people are so again stuck in this mindset of like you have to do it A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And because of that, you become a robot in the midst of trying to separate yourself from the masses. And now you're just white noise inside of this new thing that everybody's doing, right? Like go get Clubhouse. Everybody's doing it. Like send this email script. Everybody's doing it. But storytelling in emails is the best way to really break down people's barriers, to get their brain activated and the correct thoughts coming out of them instead of questions, right? You want them to be curious and to give you permission to tell them more because they want it and they desire it and they deserve the experience. That's how they'll feel in those moments as well too. So again, I think it's good for the sales world, but it will people will crash it and burn it because of the way that they're all going out and copy pasting, the things that they teach on the internet to do. But and again, in the midst of all that, if you think about it as less of a play and more of something that accommodates your buyer and accommodates the relationship you're trying to build, then it'll change.
I really love the user focus in this. And I was talking to somebody, this was years ago, and I think they were a user experience person. And they were like, they asked me about the user experience of an email. And I went, what? Because we were building software at the time, still are. And, user experience and, like what is it like to be a user of your software? And he asked the question, what is it like to be a recipient of your email? And I was like, I thought about how do I get them to do this? How do I get them to respond? How do I get them to open? But I didn't think about like, how are they going to receive it? And it seems like just I'm changing language and it doesn't really make a difference. But the shift in mindset goes from like thinking through on my side of the world versus putting myself in their shoes. And so I love that approach is that you're saying, hey, like stop thinking of these things as tools and start thinking about this human who's on the other side of your email, your LinkedIn, your phone. And how do I prove to them that this is going to be a valuable interaction?
So one of the things to back this up just a little bit, one of the things that I think is extremely important is coaching, one-on-one coaching with people. And we do what you just talked about with every student. And I believe that there's a gap in the sales world because we aren't holding ourselves accountable to what we're doing in the first place. There's really a gap because of that. So with our students, everybody hires somebody to make them better, right? At some point. So they buy the curriculum online, or they go to the class when the big speaker's in town and spend a couple days chilling and learning. And the problem is that because you don't sit with somebody and they don't come to your world and see what you're doing and you just use all their playbooks, you don't truly have the kind of success that you desire. You just get some. And so you're hooked in that moment because you're like, oh, this worked. And then you're like, oh, it's the holy grail of things. And you do it until it doesn't anymore in a couple of years. And that's a big issue, right? And so what we do when we teach people how to write good emails is that, they say, hey, do you got any scripts, or like, what do I get with my package? And I say, every time I say, all you got to do is trust us, number one, but we don't have any of that kind of stuff here. And I'm not going to elaborate on that, but all you got to do is trust us. We do things like play games with our students and take their emails and make them play a game with them where they, at the end of it, you go, so would you send yourself this email? And they say, oh, shoot, probably not, right? Because that's true empathy, right? When you put yourself into the literal emotion that somebody else would be feeling by literally leveraging your own outlook of the particular outreach itself, right? We don't do that enough. We just go, oh, I sell this product. And so, oh, I hit that really cool thing that I think really captures people's attention when I say the 70% of this many people made this much more money. Like no one cares except for you. And so you got to show people just how much you care by really speaking their love language inside of your outreach in the first place.
The second time that book has come up this week, by the way, but I love that. I like to think about in the early days when I was a sales rep, I had my normal voice, and then I had my sales voice that had just a little bit more energy into it. And and that sales voice wasn't authentic. It didn't work for me. It didn't feel naturally. And I think the same is true when I write or when I used to write cold emails, right? You have your this is how I would send an email to a friend tone or style. And then you've got and then suddenly it's like, hey, now convince that friend to take a meeting with you, and you turn into like a madman, like pun intended, trying to, write some ad copy that's just brutal. I was coaching a friend on some of his LinkedIn and email copy last week. And I said, okay, Kareem, like, just pause for a second here. I'm going to be the buyer. Let's pretend we met at a conference. And JC, the name of the book is The 5 Love Languages. It's not really related to sales. It's more related to relationships with your partner, but it is a phenomenal book. And I said, Kareem, I want you to role play this with me. I'll be the buyer, and I want you to read your messaging. And I could see just the look of anguish on his face when he started looking at his messaging. I was like, we're going to pretend to be at a conference. Okay, no, like, let's role play this. And his face was just like, it was perfect. Because it was that moment he realized, this is terrible. I would never say this to another human. So I love that you're playing with your students. And when I think about like how to break outside the industry box, just being a normal human. I mean, challenge to you, if you're an SDR, maybe you don't get that many cold emails, go talk to a VP or a director. Be like, hey, can you show me the cold emails that you get? I want to see your live inbox. And maybe they can screen share with you, right? And just say, hey, show me the last 10 cold emails that you've received. Because I guarantee they're all written like ad copy. And I think the ones that are written like a personalized or like a personal human message, you're going to get such a better response to that. And when we were doing this pre-interview, we talked a little bit about the different ways and the different kind of styles. And we talked about things that scale really well and things that are experiential and personalized. And you got some cool video stuff. So maybe before we jump into that, I know you had a couple of like ideas for how to break outside the box. So we'll spend a few more minutes on like how to break out the box. And then we're going to get into the tactical details of like, here's some really cool examples. We got a sweet video coming up as well that I didn't know who you were, and I saw this video and I'm like, I already love this guy. So stay tuned. We got that right at the end. Please stick around. It'll be one of the best videos you see all week. I promise. And if you don't, full money back guarantee. So talk to me. You got a couple pillars on how to break out of the box. And I think the first one we started talking about was personal branding as an SDR, which to me, I'm like, I'm an SDR. How am I going to invest the time to create that brand? Like that seems like an impossible workload.
So I think one of the lies we tell ourselves is that we're not interesting, we're not a brand, and essentially like in those moments we in our mind make up this thing that we could be, right? And so let me really break that down. The copier warrior is Dale Dupree. He's the copier warrior is also the leader of the sales rebellion now. And technically, like, because I'm such a psycho, certifiably, like he's talked about earlier, is that like we've killed the copier warrior, died, and he's been buried, and his tomb rests in the mountains where the sales rebellion's headquarters lies. And like we found his tomb and we found his secrets, and we started the rebellion based on what the copier warrior built in the first place. So just think about that for a second, how deep the storytelling aspect goes inside of our own organization. And so when students come into our fold, they're immersed into something that's extremely it's certifiable, right? Like you said earlier, and I'm going to keep saying that, straight certifiable. It's like, wow, this is sales training, but as you learn more about what we're doing, you learn more about yourself. And that's where your personal brand lies in the first place, is that people say all the time, I'm not interesting, I don't have your story, I could never have done the things that you've done. None of that matters. And also, like, you are interesting, your story does matter, and people do care. And marketers that say this, I've gotten into some heated debates with marketers that are like, nobody wants to hear your story. I highly disagree, and I have for a long time, since 2009 when I developed my personal brand. And I recognize what it does for people is that it helps them to see past the sea of everyone else that's calling on them in the first place. It helps them to see your intrinsic value, what passions you have, what skills you possess, the network that you have as well too that could benefit them. There's so much more to what we sell than just our product, and we have such a hard time articulating those things because we put everything into a box. And so if I'm looking at Dale Dupree and I say, how do I develop Dale Dupree's personal brand? Well, I say all I got to sit back and say is that Dale Dupree likes things that are non-traditional. Dale Dupree isn't afraid to go and knock on your door as opposed to calling you on the phone. And that's where I started to find my niches, right? Whereas an SDR, if all you have is the ability to be able to be digital with somebody or on the phone, then you have to decide which one of those things is going to, first off, is going to articulate your brand better. And then you got to write your brand out, write your story out. And not just like, I went to college and I dropped out and then I got a sales job and now I work here for XYZ company, the number one whatever in the world. No one cares about that stuff. And you don't either. You just pretend like you do when you're on the phone all day because it pays you. But if you could tap into the thing that is your personal brand, that are your passions, you will have more fun at work. And the best part of that you'll get out of this, like in the whole experience, and what I've seen replicated out of our teaching many times, is when a rep comes to me and goes, check this out, and they show the call block and they show the stats, and it's like least amount of calls is the rep you're training, and you look at that and you're like, oh god, the boss is probably mad, and then right underneath it, most set appointments, your rep with the least amount of calls, and I'm talking like 50% less on calls, and then the numbers just continue. Most closed deals, most revenue gained, right? All from this kid who didn't believe in themselves, didn't believe they had a personal brand, and then tapped into this thing. Jeremiah Griffin is a great one. He became the finance Viking back at his old job. And he still is a Viking, but he's just a Viking in a new way. And it really is who he is. You know, he gets this opportunity to kind of showcase his sarcastic, soulless, redheaded humor, and people, and it resonates with people, and they freaking love it.
Nice.
And it's nothing. Quote me on this. It's nothing special. Just like the Copier Warriors, nothing special, right? That's how we see ourselves in most cases. People freaking love it because it's experiential, because it is different, because it is special, and because other people will see your value if you believe in yourself. And a guy like Jeremiah believes in himself. We got an excellent student coming up in the ranks named Jordan Greek. He's out on the West Coast. Jordan is developing a brand around this monster concept and in the real estate world that he's in, particularly in what he does in the real estate. It's not actual, he's not a realtor. But again, the idea of these things is massive because they allow you to translate something so much different in your talk tracks, to build an experience for other people, and to transcend the traditional status quo lifestyle of an SDR or BDR. My favorite one of them all, no offense to Jeremiah or to my man Greek, and here's the thing, is that they probably both would agree with me, is a young man here in Florida that created the Reps in Black. His name is Tim Ducat. And that's a real last name, y'all. And it's a freaking bad name too. I'll tell you that. So find the guy, learn from him, follow him. He has a whole theme around aliens and how they are essentially like Men in Black style, and how they're like hiding inside of your office in the form of the things that he fixes. So whether it's the technology itself, or it's software, or it's hardware, right? Everything has a little theme. And when people read about these things or get a video email from him, it's very much out of his comfort zone, by the way, y'all. Like, he's never been on a video in the first place, and all of a sudden they shoot him in his garage telling people that taking off glasses, sunglasses, like straight Men in Black style with the suit on, saying like there's aliens in your office, right? It's crazy.
That's amazing.
Right? But people freaking love it, Colin, because they resonate with the message and they love what they're looking at.
That's so great. I'm stuck on the Greek. I still think he should have gone like the Tyrannosaurus realtor, right?
So it's not real estate like you think it is. I don't want to, like, somebody hit me. Anybody that wants to hear it, hit me up. But you're right, Tyrannosaurus Greek or whatever. We need to get with them. Greek, are you watching? Holler at us, all right? Colin and I got ideas for you, bro.
Cool. Let's jump into some of this. Let's talk about some scalable stuff that you can do. You have possibly the greatest email ever, so you say. You've got some crazy ideas around subject lines. Let's talk about them. We're going to spend another 20 minutes here, and then we're going to jump into looking at some of the messaging and some of the creativity that people have shared with us. So, yeah, look, talk to me about like these are crazy creative ideas that scale. Obviously, subject lines are fairly easy to do. How do you do them differently?
So I know that one of them that you even just said with the subject line, the greatest email ever. We also have a subject line, the worst email ever, which gets an open rate of ridiculous amounts. I promise you, it does. It's insane. And maybe some people unsubscribe because they're like, what is this garbage? But would you rather have somebody just sitting in your email list, not doing anything at all? Or would you like to get the right ones out and the right ones in? So the thought of those two emails in particular and why they're scalable is they tell a story. Again, remember that your buyer has common assumptions across the board of what sales is and what they deal with on a daily basis. It's like you were just saying earlier, Colin, like call a C-level decision maker and say, what is it like when you get a message like this? Well, also call them and say, how many times does somebody email you a day? You could see a pitch a mile away. And hell, even the subject line of the greatest email ever can feel like a pitch, but I'm gonna tell you right now, it's nothing they've ever gotten before. And typically the thought is, go ahead, please.
Oh, I stole one from so some people might have, as Veronica pointed out very frantically earlier, about 10 minutes ago, she's like, we can see you typing an email. As you were talking about how you respond to every cold email you receive, I sent you a cold email.
Yes, I can't wait.
I was only using half my brain, but I did steal a subject line from, I can't remember who it was earlier this week, so I apologize. I will find out who it was, and I'll give them a shout out. But yeah, their subject line was a cold email.
Nice.
And I jacked that from them. And they said they had a phenomenal response to that. Yeah.
Cool.
So
yeah, and I think that there's an honesty element inside of the way that we're just radically authentic in the way that we write an email to somebody. Mm-hmm. And earlier you talked about this, and we teach in the rebellion. Kindred spirit concept is a big piece of the puzzle of how you meet your tribe and sell to your tribe. And that there's more people out there like you than you think. The only reason you don't know that is because you write crappy emails that say things like, we can save this much money and time, and just like these 3 companies, and you name drop everybody and their mom, and nobody cares. Right. But if you could really relate to somebody and you could get past the common assumptions and make them feel the experience that they deserve and that you're providing in those moments, then they will feel familiarity in those moments and relevance, and they'll stick around. And so one of the concepts that I'll just go into is the subject lines suck anyway. That's one of my best. Whenever I send an email and I put subject lines suck anyway, if there's 10 people, 9 of them will open it almost immediately too. The 10th opens it like a day later. But it gets 100% open rate. And the thought of this is, again, like, imagine that shows up in your email inbox. Now, when you blast it, it usually goes into some spam folders as well too. So don't think it's going to hit 100% to everybody. But I think the last time we used it as a blast at the Rebellion, we got like a 70+ open rate, which is crazy because of the amount of emails that we have, but it's bonkers, bro. But and the click rates were huge too.
So much curiosity there. I'm like, I totally would click that. I'm like, I know this is a cold email. I know Dale had told me that this is going to be a cold email. I'm still going to click it 100%.
Yeah.
I can't resist.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. And I think that 99% of people would say the same thing. Even if they didn't know me, they would still say, yo, I know that this is leading to something that I'm trying to avoid being sold to.
It's a trap.
Opening this. Yeah. But it's about relationship building. And again, it's about familiarity, causing familiarity and curiosity in people. So subject lines are important, and like, you don't need to say the person's name. Everybody does that. And you don't need to say the alma mater or the product they sell, or you just need to cause an audacious amount of curiosity in that moment to where like it makes them mad when they get into the email, because good or bad, you need a relationship, because right now you're indifferent to everyone, and no one, because no one's acknowledging you and no one sees you, no one cares. But if you have a relationship, even if someone writes you back and goes, "This is the worst email I ever got in my life," that's when you respond and go, "Yeah, but you read it and responded to me." So I'm not really sure that you're correct in your assumption here. And again, it's not about challenging people, but it's about helping them to see that what's happening is something different than what they're used to in the first place. some of the best relationships I ever created, bro, came from like a very negative starting point. And not to say that that was the majority of the people that I reached out to, but you know, it's 2 to 3% without a doubt, because those people are out there, and typically they're literally you is what's happening. They're like, they see so much of themselves in that moment, and they hate it. And that's usually what happens, right? But the other side of it is we're afraid to have conversations like that. We're afraid to do things like call out the monotony that is cold emails in the first place. We're afraid because I don't know if that's professional. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. What's professional is honesty. What's professional is transparency. What's professional is showing someone that you do want to build a relationship and that you do care about them. If professional isn't something that sits over here from 8 to 5, it's your lifestyle as a human being and the way you treat every single person you talk to. We've put it into this box and put a label on it of professionalism, but really, like, that drives me crazy, because I think to myself, okay, so the same type of professionalism also teaches, like, don't say that to somebody because that might not speed the sale up, right? I mean, that's dumb. So stop thinking in that from that perspective. But the best types of emails, subject lines go like this: that crumpled letter I sent you. That's the best one. Or did you get my coffee coaster? Those are the best ones. Because of the rebellion, we believe in a radical education process that SDRs and BDRs all over the world that we teach, and that are also just, you know, consumers of my content, do themselves, which is that we are literally shackled to the phone when that's all that we can do, and email, right? But experiences can be given outside of those two things by using something like the letter campaign, or your own letter campaign, or what we like to call the repair brick, even inside of the sales rebellion, and lots of other fun things, you know, that we've created that are part of a two-step process. But if you can get better results out of them, like I talked about earlier with the gentleman that went and did 13 drops and got 9 responses and appointments. Matter of fact, that guy was the #1 rep for net new business in 2020, wrote almost $1 million, and it was his first year with the company. Dang. So, you know, I think that the idea is that everything, the numbers speak for themselves, the outcomes speak for themselves, and it's really about, like, how much do you want to put into it? How much do you care? Are you going to show people what that looks like? Are you going to show people how much you actually care? Are you going to give them a reason to be a part of what it is that you're building in the first place? Or are you just going to kind of waltz through life and keep using the same script and the same email and the same talk track and hope that at some point somebody responds differently? The definition of insanity, Colin, is saying the same thing over and over again, thinking that you're going to get some kind of different result. Would this be a good time too, Colin, to show some of the letter campaign, or do you want to save that?
Yeah, let's do it. And before we jump in and show the letter campaign, Frankie King, shout out, a cold email subject line. Love it.
Frankie King, a cold email. Frankie, you're the man, bro. So let's say that an envelope shows up to your office and it says crumpled letter inside, like this, a literal envelope, right? And the contents of the envelope are literally a crumpled up piece of paper, as you guys can see by the texture. Now imagine, though, that the experience is what we're trying to give here. So think of the 5 senses. Think about how people, they touch, they feel, they smell, they taste, right? Things that really are interactive from the perspective of us as humans with something like this. But also think about this, the bigger picture perspective of this, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the punchlines, is that there's multiple letters that go out. There's one that looks like it's been lit on fire. There's one that looks like it's traveled all around the world, which is one of my favorite ones without a doubt, because on the front of it is the copy itself, but on the back of it is like a bunch of passports. And the messaging, the kind of generic messaging, I should say, because we want to understand that this is a scalable concept. This isn't hyper personalized to every single person. But when you uncrumple this doc and you read it, this says, you're probably wondering why this letter is crumpled up. Well, the truth is that most of the sales and marketing that comes across your desk is trash. And so I pre-crumpled this letter to make it easier for you to throw it away. And the buyer looks at that and goes, "That's hilarious. You have some cojones on you and you're dead on." So familiarity, relevance, those things are hyper personalized in that moment. We might not be speaking their alma mater, but we're speaking their love language. We're speaking their emotional capacity in those moments, right? Like, yes, You get it. You get it. And then secondly, all salespeople need to hear this. We don't talk about it enough as a society inside of the sales world. When a C-level decision maker is opening up a letter that says, I've traveled around the world looking for you, the busiest person to get a hold of, and it's finally found you. When they open that letter, they think, why are my salespeople not doing cool shit like this? Excuse my French. And then they think, furthermore, I kind of want to hire this person on top of it. And so, from the perspective of your reputation and the generational wealth building concept that my father instilled in me and gave to me as a gift, because he went out and radically educated his territory. He had 299 accounts that were with him from the day he opened his business within the first 5 years to the day he shut his doors 29 years later, because there was loyalty built there, because there was more camaraderie, there was more community. It was more than just, hey, let me sell you something, let's get super transactional here, right? So another concept too inside of this is we love props. So like sending letters is easy, and it's super easy for SDRs and BDRs. But imagine that you're a copier sales rep or an IT sales rep or SaaS or in any kind of industry where people have a problem essentially with that is technical in nature with the product that you sell. This is what we call the repair brick. And the copier warrior used to walk around with these repair bricks that are foam and hand them out to the front desk and say, hey, could you give this to the person in charge of the copier? And these are the instructions. And this is a little cartoon of a man holding a brick, throwing it at a copy machine, like on fire. And basically on the backside, it tells them that when you wind this thing up and hit the copy machine as hard as you can and expel all the rage that you've got bottled up inside, that emotional healing will occur and all the problems will go away for a little bit. And then we end it with, but if you want to permanently fix these things, just give me a call and I'll be happy to sell you a new copy machine. And again, it's this concept of, we talk a lot about what is the problem that we fix. We talk as a society in sales, we talk a lot about what is the pleasure someone gets even from purchasing through us. And this literally wraps around all those emotions. We turn on the five senses. We activate the brain. We tell a story that's not ours. It's our buyers. And that's the thing that everybody needs to connect with more. Your buyer, when they pick up the phone and you say, hey, can I have 27 seconds to tell you why I called? I'm sorry, guys, but it doesn't work the way you think it does. In those moments, people are just having sympathy on you. And you don't want sympathy. You want people to be curious. And so instead, here, I'll give one to everybody to just as a challenge, everybody out there. When you call people, this is my favorite one yet. This is a Chris Watson special. Ask somebody if you can reinvest 60 seconds back into their day. Hey, I know you get a lot of crappy calls. Do you mind if I reinvest 60 seconds back into your day? And if you don't find it to be an investment, I'll send you like a $5 Starbucks gift card so I can sleep tonight. And take something like that and run with it. Tell people that you are a legend and they need to give you a moment to be able to show why. And then don't pitch them. Tell them all about all the things that they know are familiar and that are happening with them, and that you're the guy whenever they're ready. Hey, I know you're not ready right now, but when you are, holler at me. I'll be around, right? So this ties into the concept even of the living pipeline that we talked about, the predictable revenue segment as well, Colin, where you've got to think bigger. You got to think more than just this moment right now. You got to think 5 years down the road. You got to think, what's the experience I'm giving? What am I building? What is the reputation I'm creating for myself? Is it legendary, or is it something that will just literally fan out like a crappy spark at some point in this person's mind that I'm reaching out to?
And I'm still stuck on the pre-crumpled letter. I think that's hilarious. I hadn't heard the punchline. I'd heard you talk about it, but I didn't realize, most is junk. So I pre-crumpled this one for you. Phenomenal. Shout out to Frankie King, who's live in chat. She's saying, big thanks for the shout out. Frankie, if you're still listening, Veronica's trying to get in touch with you to get you your prize. So she's hit you up on email and LinkedIn. She's being a very diligent SDR. Can you get a reply, please? So we've talked a little bit about things that scale, which are the subject lines. We've talked about the experiential. We've got about sort of 6 more minutes. So let's talk about digital. Let's talk about video. Maybe a good time to show that video. Who wants to see what is going to be the best video? Throw one in chat if you want to see the best video you're going to see all week. I promise, at least you're going to want to find this link and share it with some friends that are in sales. Legend, wait for it, Derry. Thanks, Javo. All right, let's do it. Let me find the right button. Here we go.
It's Monday morning in the office. The weekend is wearing off and reality is slowly but surely setting in. But let's be honest, the only thing on your mind is whether or not the copier is broken.
Oh, it's everywhere. Why is this happening to me? Oh.
Control P. Control P. Control P. Control P.
Thank you for continuing to hold for copier support. A representative will be with you in 35 days.
So stop waiting for things to change with the same old copier company. And call me, Dale Dupree, with North American Office Solutions.
Great Scott! Guys, the copier! It's working! Guys, the copier! It's working!
So if your copier is broken, guys, I said if. Then pick up the phone and dial me, the best kept secret in office equipment. And remember, my friends, they call me the copier warrior.
I gotta wonder, is that still your phone number?
Yeah.
Throw an 8 in chat if you think that was the best video you've seen all week, and if you want to share it. And if you do want to share it, we'll get Vero or Julia to throw the link in chat so you can share it with all your friends. I love it. When I first saw that, I was jealous that I didn't create that for myself, because I did sell things somewhat door to door, somewhat in a similar industry, but not quite like that, which would have, I think that would have done a whole lot better than me taking donuts to construction sites.
So let me tell you guys too, everybody watching, like you can literally shoot that on your iPhone. All you need is a little bit of help from like somebody from Fiverr or a local marketing firm that can help cut it up. Because don't try to like take your own time and say, oh, I'll spend $10 and I'll figure this out. Your time is very precious, very valuable. Have somebody that knows what they're doing, spend $500 even if you have to. Mm-hmm. That video right there made me more hundreds of $1,000 months than I can describe. And here's how: 2 ways. One is either it's sent to them through something like a QR code that they can get to a landing page on where it is. So imagine my favorite one that I ever did was that I spent probably about $100, $150, and I had a 36 by 48, I think is the size, print created that was framed, and it was a giant QR code, and it just said scan me down at the bottom like it was written in cursive. And I sent it to a decision maker that was ignoring me, and that thing got scanned like 100 plus freaking times. And furthermore, it also got them to call me. So imagine, all day long you're just sitting there calling people, and people start calling you. It's freaking great. It's a great feeling. So drive that kind of emotion in people. But the other side of it is imagine that you got Vidyard, you upload that video to it, and you have a cool cover for it, like the skeleton was what I would use, right? So I'd use the skeleton on the phone with service, and so people see that as the preview, and they're like, what's this? Clicking the crap out of that thing, and then watching that video instead of you holding up a sign saying their name, which works, but how many opens do you get on that compared to what I used to get on mine? We called that video the one-hitter quitter.
Yeah, I don't think I even click on those Vidyard videos anymore, because I'm like, it was novel a while ago, but it's very clearly automation. I mean, I'm in the space, so I'm probably a little bit jaded,
True.
But I love that. So the video is one approach, and I absolutely love it. Let's talk about. We're going to take a couple more minutes, and then we got to get to some templates and some outreach. So let's talk about. I would feel bad if we didn't talk about your empty box campaign, because I think this like legit made me angry that I didn't do this in the past.
The empty box campaign is so much fun. So because it can also it drives a little bit of that anger emotion in the moment, but it's funny because people would write me back and say, I'm just mad that there wasn't actually something in here. Now you need to come back and bring me something. And I think some people would read those emails and think oh, I think I made this person angry. But I loved that kind of attention in general, because Also, I wasn't sheltered as a child, although it's funny that I say that and then I tell you all that I was homeschooled. But I was out in the community, very heavily in the community. My mom and dad involved me big time in the community, and they involved me with people that were less fortunate than me as a child, right? Not just, they didn't shelter me from those things. They didn't just put me with all the rich kids. And we weren't a uber wealthy family. We were wealthy in that we loved each other and our best friends, me and my siblings, my mom and my late father who passed in 2016 from cancer. But furthermore, like what we really had was we had freedom because my dad was the best salesperson to ever walk this earth. I'll fight anybody that wants to argue that. And the thought is that he didn't have oodles of money, but he had relationships. He had a reputation. He had created something for the rest of us to be able to latch onto and to be able to run with from the legacy perspective. So doing an empty box campaign was easy for me from the perspective of that. Like some people said, bro, this is gonna turn some people raw. Good. So I started with donuts. It's a sequence campaign inside of the Rebellion. Donut boxes, pizza boxes, and cookie boxes. So essentially it's like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And sometimes even for the breakfast version, you do a coffee mug or like 4 coffees from Starbucks, but they're all empty. And so the thought is that you drop this pizza box off. Let's just take the donut box. You open it, and there's these little glazed oil rings at the bottom, but no donuts. What the heck? And you kind of look up at the top of the box that you just opened, and it says, "Hey, sorry, but I didn't hear back from you, and so I ate all of these." And a little QR code down at the bottom that says, "Scan me if you'd like some actual donuts. If you'd like to take time to actually meet me, if whatever the case may have been." We had different messaging in the beginning. I had different messaging for pretty much every box to see like what worked, what stuck, what did people like. And I'd ask them, by the way, when you do this stuff, when you make a video like I did that you just watched, when you do an empty donut box, don't just like hear back from somebody and have them say, "Oh, that was clever," or whatever. Say like, give me some feedback. How did it make you feel? Did it really drive you to want to be around me more, or did you feel it was a gimmick? And like ask those tough questions, because your buyer appreciates that, because then they see that you're not just beating around the bush, and that you're somebody that they can trust furthermore from that perspective as well too. But just imagine that the pizza boxes were the same and the cookies as well too. But the real trick of the pizza box is to take like 3 or 4, because then everybody thinks they're getting pizza.
Dang.
And nobody's getting pizza.
You can't walk into an office or a shop and bring in the smell of pizza and like everybody look up and be like, "Oh, it's just lunchtime. I'm thinking about the lunch that I made. I'd rather not have that. I'd much rather have pizza." And then you open up and the boxes are empty. Man, you're going to get some death threats out of that one.
You will. And hey, that's a really good point too. Let me point this out. Real rebels use things like scent, because that's one of the senses. And so, yes, the donut boxes smell like sugary glaze. Yes, the coffee stain letter smells like coffee when you open it. That's when you're really becoming a legend in those moments, because when somebody has this full experience, like, "Oh, pizza," and then they open, they're like, "What?" It smells like pizza, bro. Where's the pizza? That's when you take it to the next level.
Yeah. So give me a 1 in chat if it's delightfully evil, or 2 in chat if that's just like Dr. Evil and he should be banished.
Hopefully we get 2s. I mean, because everybody's got to love pizza that much.
Totally. I mean, I think like an emotional reaction is better than no reaction, because most of the time you're going to get no reaction.
Yes.
And the number of times I dropped off donuts and you kind of got a call, and maybe they're feeling like obligated. So there's that like reciprocity. Okay, I'll like you bribed me into calling you, so I'll call you. That's not a great place to be living. But I can't believe you did this, you cheeky, like that's a hilarious spot to be. There are a lot of 2s. People are not liking you. But I think that's exactly the point. There is a sea of 2s. Sandra's the only one that's okay with that.
You would all buy from me. All you 2s would buy from me.
Yeah. Just blow them up, chat. Blow them up. Give me so many 2s. Give me all the 2s. All right. I think we have a diligence to we owe a due diligence to the audience here to get to some messaging, and let's have a look at some slides. We're going to try things a little bit differently. We actually had our lovely marketing team incredible marketing team throw all of the slides in Streamlabs for you. So we made our videos nice and small, and we're looking at the most creative way you've engaged with a prospect. So starting with, I'll do Joanna's, you know what, I'll do these, I'll read these out, and then you can give me the color commentary on your thoughts. Is that fair?
Yep.
Beauty. So my favorite SDR story was in the first week of cold calling with nearly 0 calls picked up. I was so nervous. I didn't expect my prospect to pick up my call. Of course he did, and I froze so badly I couldn't even say more than hello and hung up. I felt like the worst SDR and took a minute to review my notes and dial back. I was honest and explained to my prospect about myself being new to the role and apologized for abruptly hanging up. He laughed about it and said, "At least I know I'm talking to a real human being." That was the best icebreaker in history. I was able to have a real talk with him, and I actually booked a meeting. It helped me realize that there's no magic formula to engage, but just to be human.
Well done, Joanna. I would say this, that I know we're talking about creativity, and I would, so I'm gonna go to that place that I think being human can build up an extremely creative experience for people, because again, they're very used to dealing with a very robotic human on the other side of things. So it's disconnects. And so coming back to this idea and identity of what humanity is really helps people to feel that what's happening to them is creative and is relevant and is familiar. So great job, Joanna, on being human.
I think that took some just guts. Because I know I've made that call and I've panicked or my voice squeaked and I was like, nope, and just bailed. And so
100.
For your first week on the job, your first call, to have that level of confidence, that level of guts, bravery, love it. All right, let's get to the next one. Thank you, Joanna. All right, this one's from George Monk. Chatting with a prospect over the phone, they asked me to send over more information. So I decided to record a very short, personalized mini demo for them, uploaded it to Vidyard, and sent it over and booked the meeting a few minutes later.
Great job, George. I think that when somebody, to be creative here, when somebody says, "Can you send me some information?" I used to actually get this one a lot. I got, "Could you send me some brochures? I'll check it out and let you know if I'm interested." I used to go to the brochure closet. I used to send boxes just full of brochures, literally, and there was paper filler in there because I didn't have enough brochures.
Yeah.
But I would put a note at the top and I'd say, "Hey, this is everything I could find in the brochure closet. Hopefully it's enough information." And it's obnoxious, but again, people respect it. They go, "Okay."
I hope you put a couple
moments.
bricks in there just so it felt like you sent 30 pounds worth of brochures.
I put my address so they knew where to find me and so they could whoop my butt. But yeah, there was a whole play to it. It was a very well done drop piece actually, because if you did go through it, there was random pieces of paper with just crayon drawings on them of a guy robbing a bank. And I mean, it's ridiculous stuff that we put in there.
What?
We had a lot of fun doing, but I like this identity of when somebody's like, "Yeah, send me some information." Most people just head straight to the email and bang out an email, but doing something personalized, something demo oriented that shows the application being used, shows guts, and it's creative.
Totally. I think if I was going to take this one to the next level for George, the next time you do this, I would ask them specifically what's most interesting, or say, "Hey, what would you like me to send?" Right? Can you give me some context here? Because I could send you everything. And if I'm Dale, I will send you everything, and you'll have boxes showing up. You can use that example. Be like, "Hey, my friend Dale actually sent hundreds of pounds of brochures, so I can send you that, or you can tell me what you'd like," and then take that information and record a snippet of that aha moment in your software, which I think would take it to the next level.
I'll say this too. There's a lady in the technology industry that she sends out, or when they make that statement or ask for more information, she says, "Yep, I'll put it in the mail. It comes and it's about in a box. It's about 5'6", and it's got black hair and it's real sassy." And that's her, right? And the buyer on the other line would be kind of confused, but basically, she's like, "I'm not sending anything to you, but I'll gladly take a meeting and show you." And so sometimes being a little bit more forward is better. So I like what Colin just said, because to stop, instead of saying like, yeah, I'll get that right over to you, but to stop and say why and what do you want are super relevant to the conversation. And if you're really a true professional in the business world, then you got to remember that we're doing this to serve other people, not ourselves. And so when they make a comment like send more information, like that's generic, and you've got to drill down.
100%. I love that. I love the sassy sort of twist to it. I'm saying these things as somebody who's been on the phone and they went, send me some information. And I went, okay, I'll send you a PDF. Like I've done that 1,000 times, 100,000 times. No, it's too many times, but quite possibly 1,000 times. So I'm not saying this with total impunity of somebody who's never fucked up before. I'm saying this as somebody who's screwed up the most probably of anybody on this call, and like I've made it to the other side alive. So not from a place of arrogance. All right, from Evan, most creative way he's prospected. I had a prospect that I discovered was a major Packers fan, so I sent him a set of shoes themed after the sports team and a bottle of wine from the brand Barefoot. I left one shoe out of the box. I put the bottle in the box, put a handwritten note that said, I wanted to get a foot in the door. If you'd like the left shoe, haha, get it? The shoe left out of the box, haha. Please laugh at my jokes. I'm so lonely. Then call me at phone number, prospect name. He did, and it was one of the biggest opportunities of my career.
Nice. Way to go, Evan.
Love that. The bottle of wine was a nice touch. You'll win me over with like bad, terrible puns. If somebody like was legit prospecting to me and sent me just the worst pun in the world in like the first subject line or in like the first couple of lines, like I'm instantly gonna take that meeting, even if I don't need their stuff.
Yeah. Just to have a conversation, like a dad conversation, and tell some jokes, if anything.
I feel like this is one of the most talked about approaches that people love talking about, but not a lot of people actually pull off. Like I've heard about this 1,000 times, but I know 2 people that have done it. 3 people, you know?
I used to send both my shoes and ask them if I could come pick them up. That's what I used to do.
Like used dirty shoes?
No, they were nice, like Ferragamos.
Okay.
but yeah, hey, these are my shoes. Can I come pick them up now that I've made it through the front door? Yeah, but I think everybody's done this that's been in the creative space. This is what I like. Here's my banter is, number one, great job, Evan, because a lot of people don't just think to stop and do something fun like this. But secondly, like this isn't scalable either, Evan. Like you can't spend, I don't know, maybe Barefoot is like $1.99 now at the store. I don't know. But you can't spend $8-9 on a bottle of wine plus a shoe plus shipping the box. And also I think sending wine is illegal through the mail, so be careful about that. and expect to be able to do that with all like 100 of your dials, right? So here's the thing that I would just encourage people listening to is that this is great for targeted concepts. So like I got 10 people on this list that I really want to get in front of. So I'm going to step outside of the box, no pun intended, and really try to put my best foot forward, no pun intended, and do something like this. But remember that when you do things like this, they have to be repeatable. They have to be something that you can do from a repeatable perspective. Mm-hmm. And they need to really be something that other people aren't doing. So kind of like Colin just said, that everybody knows about this one, everybody likes to talk about it, but nobody does it. I think it's kind of both. Like a lot of people do it, but a lot more people talk about it, or they do it once. And so Evan, if you've done it once, do it twice, do it 3 times, do it 4 times, keep doing it. And create a consistency to it and something that's proven, and then you can scale that from a perspective, because maybe it turns into a smaller bottle of Barefoot wine. Again, I don't know that you can send wine to the mail, but and maybe the shoe is like a sandal or a slipper that costs $1 at Shoe Payless or some shoe store. So. Mm-hmm.
I love how, I think I said in one of the 3 or 4 intros that we did for the stream today, I think I compared you to sort of like the Yoda of sales. I want to retract that. I'm going to reframe you as the Larry David of the sales development industry, because you've taken everything that's like good and awesome and going to work, and then you made it just like slightly more awkward, but way more impactful and memorable. And I love that about you.
Thanks, man.
And you could
Thank
quote
you.
me. I also love Seinfeld, and I struggle with Curb Your Enthusiasm. I've watched most of them, but like there's just
Yeah,
sometimes
it's
you're like,
not easy.
oh, and I think that's the exact feeling I had there. You know, when you're like, okay, let's change it up just a little bit. I'm like, oh man, it's so good, but it's so awkward. I love it. All right, let's look at this next one here. Oh, Frankie King. Frankie King. So, disclaimer, I'm not a poet. I wrote the CMO of General Mills a poem, and he loved it. I got the idea after listening to an interview with him on a podcast where he mentioned that his voicemail was a short poem. The email was titled, "A Poem for You." The CMO and I emailed back and forth, but he ultimately decided he wasn't interested right now. After a few value-driven emails, I engaged again, asking for a meeting a couple months later, with a message titled, "Couldn't this fit in a poem? Couldn't this fit in a poem?" He remembered me as
Fit this in a poem.
couldn't fit this in a poem. He remembered me as the poem girl, of course, and wrote saying, "Still not interested." 5 minutes later, he emailed me again explaining why he's not interested right now and told me to keep bothering him until he is. It's only a matter of time before they're ready for us, and it's all thanks to one memorable poem. I guess I can call myself a poet.
Do you want to read the poem?
Why don't you read the poem? Because I've got our images over top of that.
Cool. Have you ever imagined a world where you never missed out on the market share, where General Mills could not only predict, but prioritize every consumer shift? It's not enough to know what they're thinking now. You need to see the future, what, why, and how. Right now, CPGs lose $3 billion a year because the trends they thought were gold actually disappear. Would love to chat when you are free about how to never miss another opportunity.
Oh my God.
Yo, Frankie, what is up? Like, that is sick. Now, like, for me, if the poem comes in on like a scroll that feels like it was found in the lost sea or something crazy, then it's like elevated to another level. But in general, there's two things that I love about this. One is that Frankie really tried to make sure that they weren't just reaching out to this person in a traditional way from the perspective of I want to set an appointment. Instead, even inside of the poem, there are these fun little elements of familiarity, number one, because of General Mills and their particular market and the things that Frankie is bringing up. Frankie is a female, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I also love about what she's done here is that like she's not saying in the poem, at least, hopefully not in the emails either, Frankie, but she's not saying here's how we fix that problem. Instead, she causes a massive amount of curiosity at the end by just saying, I'd love to chat when you're free about never missing another opportunity. Plus it rhymes and it's poetic and it goes with the whole rest of it. And it's, to me, it says, well, what do you do? That's almost immediately what I say in that moment, on top of just loving what I'm reading. So I think this really speaks the love language of the buyer. Because again, like Colin was saying earlier, that it's not, the book isn't written for sales, it's written for humans and relationships and like with your significant other. And we have to treat the business world, our business world, the same way when we're reaching out to people. We have to treat them. We have to honor the people that we're reaching out to. We have to show that we cherish what we're trying to build with them, and that we're not just flinging spaghetti against the wall and hoping that something happens, right?
Yeah.
I also love the perseverance here, bro. I think that's the big piece of this one that I like the most. That like, not your creativity doesn't always get you a deal, ladies and gentlemen. That's extremely important to understand. I had many times in my career that I did something so awesome and I thought, how the heck do you not just take an appointment with me now? And this is one of those times, right, where then Frankie just stayed persistent and she was rewarded by doing so. And also it says very clearly that this person trusted her by, sending a still not interested email and then catching themselves and saying, I shouldn't say it like that. I shouldn't be like that. Mm-hmm. Because they have credibility with Frankie at that moment, and that box campaign works because here she is following up with this person that said we're just not interested again, and they're thinking nothing's changed, why are you bothering me? But then they go, I shouldn't be like that. So this person really does care. They're giving me an experience, and they're being perseverant in their methodologies. That's why there's three empty boxes too, right? So I'm kind of in love with this one, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to add. I just highlight that the creativity and the perseverance. That's a deadly combination. Right on, Frankie. So let's move to voting here. I'll show everybody else what we're looking at for slide number 1 here. So we've got the very human approach of Joanna. We're just freaking out on the first cold call that answered, and hanging up, and then calling and having the guts to call back. Love that one. Next is George sending over a personalized mini demo over a Vidyard. Up third is Evan with the one shoe campaign. And last but not least, Frankie King with the poem. So give me a 1 in chat if you think Joanna is the winner. Give me a 2 in chat if you think George is the winner. Give me a 3 in chat if you think Evan's one shoe takes the cake. And give me a 4 if you think it's Frankie all the way. All right, I'll give you all a couple of minutes here. Sandra is big time favorite for George, the monk in the one shoe. But we'll keep going. The Sales Rebellion's in there. Cool. Is that you?
Maybe. I have guy. Come on, guy. I got employees.
Yeah. All right. Sandra's voted 100 times. We're getting some other votes trickling in. Sandra's a big fan of the one shoe, the puns.
I love Sandra's enthusiasm here, man. It's good.
Yeah. Frankie's going for Joanna's honesty. All right. Now that we've given Evan's voting for himself, Stas is going for Frankie. There we go. All right. Well, Frankie can't vote twice, or can't win twice. Yeah, Frankie did win a couple days ago.
Oh, this is the Frankie that wrote the "This is a cold email" subject line.
Yeah. Same
Frankie's
Frankie.
on a roll.
Frankie's crushing it this week.
Can I like veto that rule right now? Like as a guest host, can I say that like, yeah, she can win?
Oh, that I didn't say that. I was just reading what Sandra was saying. Yeah, there are no rules here. Screw that.
Yeah, Colin's like, I'm Canadian. What do you think?
Yeah,
what are you thinking here? Yeah.
Totally.
Anything goes.
Yeah. All right. So now that we've gotten the audience participation, we are going to absolutely ignore everything that they said, and we're going to flip to vote for ourselves here. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, shoot, and just hold up a number. You got your number? Maybe. All right. Give others a chance, Sandra. Not a chance. This isn't. Well, everybody's got an equal chance. There's 25% chance they're going to win it. Ready? 1, 2, 3, shoot. I gotta say, it was a really tough toss up between, like Joanna's story was crazy powerful in the just being willing to admit that she panicked. Like that to me is phenomenal. If this was the gutsiest way to approach your prospect, or like your most heroic moment in sales, I think Joanna would have taken the cake. It was I was looking for the most creative. And I think if I look at like raw guts versus a poem, like poem fits the theme. It's not one is better than the other, but I love the poem. Frankie, well done. What do you think, Dale?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it was a toss up between 3 and 4 for sure. And then it has to be, at the end of the day, it has to be something for me from a creative standpoint, something I've not necessarily seen before, or something that, again, that speaks to me as the buyer in regards to what it is that you fix. And so the shoe and the wine they fix a few things, right? They fix like my stress levels, and they fix the fact that I burned through shoes cold calling. But that would be, I think that the one thing I do want to say, I see Evan's in here. I'd say, Evan, tap into your creative bone deeper and like unleash the thing that's on, like what you did is more surface level than it is like a deeper, I am Evan, hear me roar. And so I would tell you, as somebody that sees your potential and that whole entire outreach cadence that you put together, to go one step further and then also to create something that's very repeatable for you. And I'm sure you're already super successful, bro, but imagine, you know, the next level that you can get for yourself. If you're not making $1 million yet, then as a sales rep, then try it.
Love it. I'm being reminded that Frankie didn't actually win Tuesday. She was a runner-up, and Lisa took the cake home. So Vero and Julia are correcting me, telling me I'm wrong,
Nice.
which is often the case. So, Frankie, congratulations and solid victory. All right. And Evan is saying, I'm paid to grab attention and then to do discovery, not solve problems. Very cool, man. Thanks everybody for participating. This is one of those things that, like, it takes bravery, it takes guts just to submit your stuff. We are absolutely going to do this again. And my ask to you is show up next time. Help us vote, help us contribute. If you didn't win this time, if your submission didn't make it to the top, try again next time. Hopefully rewatch these. There's probably a couple hints in terms of what I'm biased towards and what Dale is biased towards. And so phenomenal session. Big thanks to everybody that showed up. Dale, thank you so much for showing up and leading this session. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me.
If people want to find out more about your rebellion, though I do think you should call it like Curb Your Sales Development. I think this is the new name of your company or your next course. How can they get in touch with you?
So head over to thesalesrebellion.com. You can Google my name, Dale Dupree, at Sales Rebellion on Twitter, TikTok, and /Sales Rebellion on Facebook, /IN/Copier Warrior on LinkedIn. You can find me on Snapchat too, believe it or not. And then / Sales Rebellion on YouTube as well. So basically just like go to any social channel and find us and hang out with us. We got a free Slack channel that kind of like hides amongst the comments of our content that we invite people to come. It's our personal Slack channel for the company. So you can actually come and see all the inner workings of the rebellion, learn fun, more progressive ways to do outreach in your sales walk, build a legend, and leave a legacy.
Very cool. Are you saying / intentionally? Just to like, because you know it's incorrect and you're just trying to drive people crazy?
.com /
.com / :
Sorry that I didn't say the whole thing, everybody. But
do you call them GIFs too, just to bother people? You're the GIF guy?
No, it's a GIF. And Jason Walter, who is the founder of GIFs, basically he's got more viewers than Disney of his GIFs, is one of my best friends, and so I'll fight anybody that calls it a GIF all day long.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen a video of the guy who I thought it was the guy that created the
It's a
GIF.
lady. It's a lady that actually created it. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
There's a whole argument, bro. There's a whole argument.
I mean, I call it a GIF because I've been, I was like a Windows 3.1, Windows 95 user, and as a child, I was like, this is pronounced GIF, so I don't care what's right. I care about what I call it. And I'm going to get invaded by children here, so we may lose the stream. You going to say hi, Joe? Yeah. All right. Say hi to everybody. Hi. Say hi to Dale.
I can hear my dude. What's up, Joe? I can hear my dude at the door trying to get in. Hey, Joe.
All right. Here comes Neil. Go see Yaya. Okay. Run. Yeah, you can give me a hug. All right.
Why did you go?
Daddy's been here. He's working. All right.
Like,
can you say join the Slack community?
Hi.
Say join the Slack community. No.
You can do it. Come on.
Say join the rebellion.
Join the rebellion.
All
man,
right.
Let's go.
There you
Let's
go. Thanks, buddy. Okay, go see Yaya. Go see Yaya. Thank you. I'm glad they waited till the very end, because sometimes one of them jumps in and distracts me and the other one hits the power button on my computer and then we lose the stream. So yeah, that would have been a hilarious way to wrap it up. Looks like Veronica is chatting with me. She's not one. Okay, cool. All right, I think we're wrapped. Dale, thanks again, man. Really appreciate this.
Yep. Appreciate you, bro.
All right, we'll see you all next week, where we will crown the final winner of Sales Development Week, and maybe we'll pick a winner overall, just because that'd be fun. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same bat channel.